Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 82 for January 28th, 2014. Have you guys noticed this month that we've been getting really cool date matchups with the January thing? Like we had 2014, and then we had something else at the beginning, I believe. Anyways, there's been a couple of cool date matchups.
Well, this one, episode 82 on the 28th.
Yeah, it's like flipped.
It's a palindrome.
Right, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know what that word means.
Anyways, my name is Rainbow Plasma. I am the organizer and editor this week, and today I'm joined by...
Burndo1, special guest coordinator.
I'm Flutterguy317. I'm the media manager.
I am Applespock. I'm Questions and DeviantArt Guy.
Yay!
Yeah, I should really learn to put those comments after we introduce ourselves. Because my biggest fear is every single week we talk on the live stream and we talk about we always get at least one person who's just I haven't really learned your voices yet, because that's a natural thing because we're four generally same aged guys, and I mean I don't think we have personally similar voices, but I can see
from three completely different regions though. I feel like people could get used to our accent because I have West Coast don't really care accent, and Flutterguy's a little bit more East Coast and proper, and then we have Australian and Canadian, and every time I make one of my friends watch the show, it's Rainbow Plasma's Canadian, ain't he?
Really? Well, I don't know. I think what you're hearing is kind of a combination of a little bit of Canadian and a little bit of East Coast.
Yeah, it's just the region you're from and colloquialisms, you know?
I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, I always have this fear that people can't understand who's, because usually when I start up a new podcast or something, the first thing is learn the people's names. You know, I have to hear their names, I have to hear them associate with each other and talk about their names. That's why we do the introductions, by the way, at the beginning of the show every single week, because every single week we will probably have at least one new viewer. And we want people...
That's what we hope.
Yeah, exactly. So we want people to be able to follow along with our voices.
So if you're a new viewer, yay.
We already did our intros. We're not going to do it again.
Hi,
joined us.
my name's Burned. I like art. Hi.
He's the art guy.
Yeah.
My name's Atmospark.
Well,
I'm the guy that annoys the guys.
No, we
that other
literally
guys
just
don't
did
like.
the intros. Let's have enough of this. Yeah.
So that guy's getting annoyed as Rainbow Plasma. You can
Stop
remember
it.
him because he always gets annoyed.
We're not
And
doing
the guy who's just
we're not
out-
doing a 5-minute intro every single podcast.
The guy who's just sitting quietly by is Flutter Guy.
Hi, Flutter Guy.
I love the fact that I said stop it after the first one, and we decided to do everyone anyways. As if you guys didn't recognize my voice or something.
Can also point out that giggle was great, and I'm pretty sure that's what Flutter Guy's known for. Whenever I go read the YouTube comments or something, there's someone mentioning that giggle.
Do you remember first episode we got a comment saying
Pretty
the giggle was
infamous.
annoying?
And we're I'm sorry, you're annoying.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Did you not see that, Flutter Guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, first
I saw
episode, we got a comment on YouTube that is just I don't know, I think the giggle is kind of annoying, and we're we don't care.
You don't have to watch our show.
But please watch it.
Giggling is a part of our show, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So, in case people notice, I don't think we actually sound it too much, because we're all kind of getting over it, but we all managed to get sick this week, I believe. Or Atmospark, you weren't really sick this week, but you're kind of perpetually sick.
I was sick last week and it's just sort of just carried over.
You have allergies all the time, that's the thing. So, but
I'm throat pain.
yeah. So we were all sick this week. I started getting sick right after we recorded last week, and I'm kind of just coming out of it now. So I'm a little bit congested. I know Burned had something recently.
Yeah, still a little snuffly.
I know Flutter Guy, you had something this week as well.
Yeah, I got sick on Sunday night or whatever, and then I know because I tried to join the live stream for the podcast, and 10 minutes in I was just dying.
Oh yeah,
so I had to hop out.
That's
unfortunately.
That's too bad.
So sorry if you guys were in there and I couldn't stay, but yeah, I'm feeling better now though. But anyhow, Burn, I know you had something that you wanted to bring up before we move into the art. So
oh yeah,
something that's awesome.
I was just gonna quickly say that, or quickly point out something that was super awesome is that I a little while ago contacted Agamemnensar about his fan art thing that he did for us, his fan art pieces and sketches, and I was that's one of the most amazing things that anyone's ever handmade for us, and Like that's, and it was really super awesome. So I asked if he would be willing to sell it to me, like as an art piece, like as like a commission or something. And he flat out refused and said that he'd send it to me as a gift, which was crazy. And I was really taken aback by that. And then he asked me if any of you guys would like anything, and like for him to send you guys something. And so then we all ended up talking to him over like Skype, and he ended up sending us a whole bunch of fan art that he's actually like handmade and colored pencil of us, and it was super awesome. And I had just gotten that package after we recorded the last episode, so like the beginning of this week. And so like I have all these pictures and stuff that we can like put on the screen or whatever. I guess so we can put them in our, actually we can even favorites them and upload them to the Cutie Art Crusader gallery. But
Yeah, we should do that.
they're ridiculously adorable and they're awesome, and I really wanted to give him a shout out and thank him personally for that, because it's like it's super special to like actually physically get something that's, you know, handmade by someone, a fan of anyone, someone in Poland of all things, to ship something like that overseas for me, and not want any kind of compensation or anything for it, you know, and for us. So I'm going to be shipping the sketches of you guys out to the other CAC, and I don't know, it was really awesome. So thank you, Agamemnetzar. Wanted to give you a little shout out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I cannot wait to get that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to show those off when we all individually get them.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to the art. Our theme for this week is Octavia, because I guess it was requested quite a few times, and Octavia is an awesome background pony. So our first piece is called Melody by AJVL, otherwise known as Aaron JVL, who does a lot of really cool pieces that use like interesting colors and stuff. And the first thing that I kind of noticed in this piece is the color that he used on Octavia's gown, which is kind of the most vibrant in the piece. So I'm guessing it's kind of in there to draw your focus a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, it's very velvety for sure.
I feel like it's the most vibrant color that like physically stands out. It's like the most saturated, so like it definitely has that effect. But as far as like where my gaze is being drawn, I feel like it's where the piece is being lighted, so where things are being illuminated. So which is physically like Octavia and like the front of her, the kind of lighter valued areas, like in the, you know, like the pillow, and then the highlights on her and like on her hooves and face, and then the little like fluffs and riffles there. I feel like that's attracting my attention more than the bright pink is. But the pink definitely stands out in the piece, causing it to be something that is, I forget the right word, but it does have a specific effect, like when I look at it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because... Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
Every week!
Every
week!
Okay, so it's interesting because Octavia is kind of a monochrome pony. If you take out like her eye color, because she's literally just black and white. Or black and gray. So it's interesting to see, like, in a lot of art pieces, a lot of artists, like, will just put in little colors here and there just to kind of make it stand out, I guess. Go on, Emma's work.
A lot of people do these styles where it's sort of regal looking, where it looks like it could be a royal portrait. Like, you hit that one from episode 69, the Cadence one, and this one, and they still look real, but they're completely different styles, which really does look cool. I mean, I'm assuming Burned probably has a word for it, because he does that sort of thing. He has words for things. But like different styles of being regal and still looking regal, like it could be a royal portrait. This does, and it could be the colors, because there's a lot of pinks and there's a lot of reds in this. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it's a good point. I actually like that point because it does have that kind of feeling, and we have featured pieces that kind of carry that royal or regal feeling, as you were saying. The word I like to use sometimes, just because I've been in art history, is it has kind of a classical feel, and you can also say that because classical art usually tends to like go over like, you know, regal portraits and like things that, you know, kings or queens have commissioned, people of high prestige because when there is an old school artist, you have to have a lot of money to be able to afford a painting like that. So there's that kind of feeling and theme that a piece like this carries, because it has a character posed in a very like prestigious way, in a manner of like a very voluptuous gown, and then like the background looks like it's all kind of fancy and crafted and whatnot. And so the piece and how it's crafted, I would call classical, but it definitely has that feel, which is a good point. So bravo.
It's interesting that you brought up the word classical, because Octavia does play classical music. So.
Or does she? Have we actually heard her play music?
We have.
Yes.
At the gala.
That's where her first appearance
Gala.
was.
Maybe that was different for her. I've only heard her play music once. Maybe she's really a rock artist, but she decided to do that one for a bit of extra money.
That's where the cello came from. I mean, it wasn't something that was made up by the fandom. Like, she was playing a cello.
Maybe she plays a rock cello.
I don't know. It was so long ago.
I think you've been reading too many
Fanfics.
shipping fanfics with vinyl.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Violinists that do rock is really great.
I don't.
Lindsay
I
Sterling?
rarely see the someone who is displayed that way in the that way she was in the show do rock cello.
Yeah.
Well, you're making her a one-dimensional character.
Then
Maybe she
again,
has a
how
side.
many
Oh, for God's
how
sakes.
many classical looking ponies have you seen in your life? Like, come on now. Like
Yeah,
last
she
time I
stands
saw
out. She is a
pony
regal
on
pony.
stage playing a cello,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I hate you all.
It's
Today, an
I mean,
overanalyzing a pony show.
yeah. This piece definitely does have that kind of portrait-y classical feel to it. And it's done in a very, like, this whole setting is done in a very, I guess, Victorian era.
Totally.
Yeah. So it does have that kind of regal portrait feel to it. And I do like the nice touch of having the cello in there in the foreground, and the bow with the sheet music there.
And those tapestries as well. I don't know what that. It's like I can't think of a second one to put in the background behind her head. But I like the music note, and there should be something else there, like the treble clef. Sorry, there should be something else there. But
Yeah, like a bass clef. Would be awesome.
yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things that go on in the piece, and so I guess I'll address your point first because I just thought of it. But when you think about the positioning of the pony, right? So she from top to bottom, it's also left to right. So that means the cutie mark is going to be on the right-hand side, and if you notice, the treble clef is on the right-hand side, which is her cutie mark, I believe. So
that
it
makes sense.
kind of matches that. Not saying that's the reason why they did it, but that could be something. I also wanted to bring up the fact that if you look at the piece from the bottom to the top, it starts out very, not cluttered, but very busy. There's a lot of things there. There's the music, there's the bowstring, there's the cello, right? And you get up and you get into this intricate dress, and you have Octavia, and then you have, on that horizontal plane, then it's just her head, so it's like less detail, and then you get less and less and less as you go up. So it's interesting. You can't just think of an art piece in like the way it's put together, but also in like the things that are in the scene themselves shape how the art piece comes out in the end. And so it does go from again, not using clutter, what did I say before? Busy. It goes from busy in terms of objects and detail from bottom to top. It goes from lots of detail to not so much.
Also, I'm surprised we should really do something on this later on, but this picture perfectly follows the rule of threes.
Does
Or
it
the rule
though?
of thirds. It does perfectly.
Yeah.
The
Well, the
focal
background
point of
does.
the picture, which is right beneath her eye, where the brightest part is, that's directly that directly follows the line of thirds.
Okay.
Like it's on the intersection of two lines, like the rule of threes. It's directly on that intersection.
I don't know. Bern, do you want to put your input on this? Because
Easy. So now hold on. There's a couple things. When we're talking about rule of thirds, like I like to bring that up now and then when something does cross a third point, or like areas that come up with thirds. I haven't actually brought this up. I don't know where a third is. I think you're saying her eye is where the bottom third portion and then the third of the width meets. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like vertical and horizontal, yeah.
I feel like her head is a little bit high, because the third portion of the piece would actually be right below her chin line and through her
No,
neck.
I didn't say her eye. I said the brightest part, which is below her eye.
Brightest part. Okay, so you're saying the light, where it's highlighted.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd also be
What kind
hesitant.
of slices are you talking about?
I'd also well, hold on. I would also be hesitant to say that, like lighting is specifically placed in like the third portion. In that bottom left quadrant, there's definitely a lot of emphasis of lighting placed, so there's a lot of focus there. But I don't think that AJVL put specific focus in like, this is going to be like in rule of thirds, because the rule of thirds is more for something that that's considered in photography. And it's just that when you're taking a picture, you should place, your subject at one of the 1/3 points or intersections of the third point, because you can have more complete, like a more complete picture. It's just so you don't put something like right smack dab in the middle. So like, yes, this character is definitely following kind of that 1/3 rule, because it's in like the bottom third portion and the lighting is in that bottom third portion. And there's another, area up at the top that there is like more space to create a more dynamic picture. And it would be a completely different feeling if Octavia was right smack dab in the center. So there's definitely that sense when it comes down to composition. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that anything is specifically like laid out on rules of thirds, intersections, and that quite that far. You know what I mean? I don't think like it was strategically placed at specific intersections, but you're definitely correct in that like where the character was chose to be put in this like vertical composition, and like leaving space here and like putting the character at the bottom gives specific feeling, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm losing anyone.
I guess the only thing that I'd have to say on that is just, I suppose, caution against applying the rule to every single piece.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, this piece doesn't look like a piece that was specifically meant for the rule of thirds. And and again,
like, real quick, when we were talking about like art specifically in like digital art or like creating like art pieces, normally the rule of thirds isn't something that super applies. It's normally when it comes to like photography or animation or medias like that, or even sometimes in like movies or animation like Disney and stuff. That's why Spirit would talk about it. But go on.
I was just gonna say that like just because it applies doesn't mean that it necessarily was A, thought of, and B, is something that you should aspire to do. I feel like in photography, like you were saying, it's much more of a prevalent thing that if you're taking that type of shot, then you should really consider the rule of thirds. And I don't think at any point artists should necessarily really consider the rule of thirds, if that makes any sense. You know
it's
what I mean?
something people
Well,
can take into consideration, but it's not a
Yeah.
specific focus when it comes to like traditional like mediums.
Whereas in photography, it kind of is a focus.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's more of a photography kind of composition than it is a drawn or painted one,
Well, the only way we could find that out for sure whether it was intended was by asking AGVL. Personally, I think it was because of the way that it's laid out.
Which is totally fair.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I which means that we should totally have him on the show so we can ask him.
also, that being like saying that it's not specifically a focus in art isn't exactly true, because that one that we featured in our steampunk episode of Lazy Flash was also really,
things
really
looked
well
really
done.
deliberately like laid out and crossed certain specific quadrants. But that piece, it was meant to look like a camera photo. You know what I mean? It looks like someone was standing there with a camera and snapped the shot. So the composition was definitely very deliberate. And you could argue the same concept for this one, but you could also argue in that someone, if they were painting this portrait, because this is a digital painting, different concepts of composition probably came to mind than where to focus your camera lens,
Well, he definitely did have composition in mind when painting this piece.
Of course.
So, I mean, there might have been a loose rule of thirds that he followed, or just some other different composition method or whatever. But I mean, I can kind of see where you're coming from, Atmospark, with like for instance in the background with these vertical, I guess pillars or whatever, where they kind of end at third from the top
Like
of the piece.
the tapestries are a big giveaway.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm going to
the
put up a
points on the
grid
tapestries.
either way, and people can decide on their own. I personally don't
Yeah.
really agree with. I think it's a
I'm-
coincidence.
I'm looking at it in Photoshop. There's no specific things ending at exact quadrants or ending at exact thirds. There really isn't. The point that people should take away from this is that the character that we're looking at, Octavia, is specifically placed at a lower portion in the piece, so it's not specifically centralized. Because that's really the key thing when it comes down to like just like a simple like composition and painted stuff that's not photography. It's, do you want your subject to be centralized? Do you want it to be off key? Do you want it to be lower or higher? And in this case, we have the character placed on a lower area in our plane, and we have a lot of space up above, which creates a specific feeling. What that does for the viewer is, largely up to the viewer, but it can cause a lot of things. There's a lot of huge open heavy space up above the character with that red drape and the tapestries, which gives it a more like regal feeling, open ceiling, whatever you want to kind of give to that. But like I said, to repeat myself, like the point that we're taking away is that the character is in the lower portion, like not in the center, and like what that does, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll put a grid up on the screen so people can decide for themselves.
Yeah. All right, so we got to move on to our next piece, which is called...
Script now, come.
Well, everyone's silent. Okay, Strings Unbound by Fox in Shadow, who is a fantastic artist who I don't think we've featured before. But this piece shows Octavia playing the cello on top of a volcano, it looks like, with...
So epic.
Yeah, just like epic volcano music,
Yeah.
So
Who brings a cello on a volcano?
Dude,
Octavia does.
Octavia.
She's a BA.
Bachelor of Arts.
The thing about Fox in Shadow, right? All of his art is extremely grungy. It's like his thing is to do like kind of that darker, grungier kind of feel. All of his paper is like shades of yellow, brown, gray. Like all of his kind of stuff is done not messily, but almost like there's like the paper's faded and crinkled a little bit. It's a very, very common thing for him to do. And I don't always necessarily agree with it, because sometimes I feel like it doesn't match the tone of the piece. Then again, I mean, a lot of his stuff, it does match the tone because he tends to do darker, interesting things like that. Anyways, what I was getting to there was the grungier feel here. I mean, yes, there's no yellow paper, but it's got the grungier feel. It's got this more like, it's got smoke coming up. It's got these fiery particles, And I think his style really, when you get that matching style, it matches up really, really well, and it really like catches my eye. And so that's why I wanted to feature this piece, because the way his style went with his choice of location and other things. This is a commission for somebody, so maybe he didn't choose location, but the way he ended up doing it matched really well with his style, and I think that's an awesome thing to do.
Well,
this specific commission, by the way, is done for cover art of a song by Carbon Maestro, who's a really good
yeah, he does a lot of
brony musician.
He does a lot of epic orchestral pieces, which fits with this piece. So
yeah, epic orchestral. What did you just say?
Orchestral.
Epic orchestral.
Yeah,
Orchestral.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Words.
How do they work?
Sorry, I can understand why you're confused. It's orchestra and orchestral.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
With an L at
definitely
the
why
end.
I was confused.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one of those English derpy words.
Derp.
Yeah. I like the whole particle effects that Fox and Shadows uses in this piece, because you get these like sparks flying, and you also get, I don't know if that's like waves crashing or whatever, but I'm assuming that he used some sort of texture for that, for the lower end, like the waves crashing, but then the whole particle effects of like sparks flying is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I do enjoy that as well. It's definitely, I mean, textures, me. That's been the theme lately. But yeah, no, I really do enjoy it.
Okay, going back to the point we were making on our last piece, though, on this piece, like looking at composition again, and like talking about that rule of thirds, like this piece is again not following that specific rule or so, if you will, because we're like when we're talking about the rule of thirds, we're talking about photography, so we have the subject placed at like an area of a third to make something more dynamic. And in this example, it's like nothing is following those specific rules, like the character isn't at a specific third. You have the character that you want to be the focus, or the area you want to be the focus at the deadpan center, which would be the character's face. Like if we drew like a line right down the center of this piece, the character's face, so Octavia's face would be right in the center, and then obviously like everything's kind of like built around that and going off to one angle and whatnot. So I just wanted to again like point out that the composition in this piece specifically is not done in the rule of thirds, but it's done in whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I don't really have an advanced way to say, hey, look at this piece. It's not in the rule of thirds, but it's still done well. I don't I don't have fancy words for that.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And again, like following specific composition rules isn't everything. Like rule of thirds can be so overplayed.
It's kind of like an unnecessary rule of thumb for photography.
Yeah. But it's like you can get good photographs if you don't use rule of thirds. Like there's other composition methods and stuff like that. But it's kind of like one of those basic rules that you first learn when you go into photography, is that like, you follow this composition and you get good pieces.
Right.
So, but yeah, this piece, definitely does not follow that. But there is this kind of, again, with the whole diagonal motion, the
Yay.
the volcano or whatever it is behind Octavia is kind of at a diagonal, like the whole plane that she's standing on is diagonal. So there's kind of movement there. So
compositionally, that is what the piece really has going for it, is all of the diagonals in the thing, in the background and in Octavia. There's a lot of super strong diagonals, and again, what we said on the show is diagonals create drama, they create movement, they create emphasis. Like you have like verticals and horizontals are very strong and sturdy and motionful whatever thing.
Motionful.
They're just there, motionless. They are motionless is what I was trying to say.
They're stationary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sturdy, where diagonals would create sense of epicness and flowing and movement and blah, which you can see in this. So like the wind is blowing at a diagonal, the cello is placed at a diagonal, the character's stance is at diagonal, the big spires are diagonal, and curving as well, which also gives it a specific feeling.
Yeah, it gives it. I mean, it's not
epicness.
It's not a fisheye lens at all. But like you were saying, curving plays a part to it as well. It's kind of our brain looks for these straight lines, and we're given these curved rocks, and so it's almost like the entire piece is unstable, which I think is an awesome feeling to get from it. Because when you actually look at the subject matter, ignoring the composition, it looks pretty unstable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and that was the concept too that we were saying in the beginning, like an epic orchestral piece. So the epicness is being created by these like diagonals, like the sense of epicness is being created by the diagonals.
Yeah.
These strong diagonals, blah blah.
Yeah.
My words suck.
It's okay. You're getting over your sickness. We'll forgive you this time.
We're all
words are
getting
just
over our
hard.
sicknesses.
People have known this if they've like listened to me on the show. I just suck at all kinds of the words.
Oh,
We should just replace you with a picture. Because
What?
It's not very nice at all.
Because
That was so uncalled for.
1,000 words.
You can't save that. You can't just say the first half of the joke and then giggle and then not say the second half of the joke.
Go on.
I didn't giggle. That was Fodder
That
Guy
was
that
me.
giggled.
I'm sorry. I cut him off.
Fodder Guy's the giggler in this
Well,
group.
then there's no giggle, so it's even worse. We should just replace you with a picture.
I'm not going to specify which picture, though.
This one.
Is it this picture?
This one.
Could be.
There's so many pictures of Burned, we could just replace it with a picture of Burned Pony.
There
Yeah.
are a lot of pictures of me.
Burn
There are a lot
dog.
of pictures of you.
Burn dog.
Luckily, there's also a lot of pictures of me, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one or two of me.
Something that I wanted to point out with this piece and with a lot of pieces of Octavia is that for some reason, I don't know if it's the color combination or whatnot, but when people draw Octavia, her mane and tail always seem to have a lot of volume to it. Whereas like if you draw other ponies, I can't think of anything in particular, but like the tails kind of can be very flat. And like, good artists will kind of give them volume and whatnot, but it seems like with Octavia that like anytime that she's drawn, I think it does have something to do with the color combination, and I guess probably ease of shading because her tail is kind of a darker gray. You get this kind of volume to her mane and tail, which is, it's interesting. I don't know. It's just something I've noticed.
Well, it is. She has a lot of curvature to her hair. There's not a lot of jagged lines in most of her design. And I guess when it comes down to ponies, the real design is the hair, and the colors. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about lines, it's really the hair. So there's a lot of curvature in the hair, and that creates a certain kind of flow. And I think curvy hair is also generally translated on our heads to become volume, and to have lots of hair. Mm-hmm. When you think of Pinkie Pie's poofy hair, you don't think of it as just like a mohawk.
Yeah.
You think of it as big and three-dimensional and poofy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hair, how does it work?
I know. All right, so we're going to move on to our next piece, which is called Octavia by Shimabo. And this is a very interesting piece with, I guess, colors.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. There was something that I wanted to bring up before you go on about colors, because once you start with colors, you never stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good, actually. But I wanted to bring up a couple of alternative things. First of all, we were just talking about hair, so you can see the hair there, and that does a couple of things. Again, it's kind of voluminous. It's got a lot of volume to it, and it's flowing back and forth, so it gives motion and all that stuff, and I'm sure Byrne will talk about the motion of the hair. But also, there are two instances of text in this piece, which is not something that's super common. Well, one of them is common. One of them is common because one of them is a signature. Mm-hmm. By the way, great signature. Does not take away from the piece. If, in case you haven't found it yet, it's near the tail. It's kind of a curved little signature right there. It's not. I don't think that's takes away from the piece at all. I think it's fantastic, and it's a great signature. So if you want an example of a good signature, there's another one. And obviously the bigger one, and the one you probably noticed, and the one that's less common, is the title. Using an interesting underlining thing to make it almost like a header, which goes behind the cello, which is great because it gives the piece a three-dimensional feel. And just using a couple of fonts and a couple of words to change the feeling of the piece, or to compensate for the fact that they're using text. They're using a fancier text. If I were to associate that font particularly with Octavia, it that makes sense to me. It's very fancy font. It connects with each other. It's very cursive.
It's not Comic Sans enough.
Well, except for the O. The O is custom. But anyways, I think text in a piece like this, which is a little bit more digital, a little bit less like a painting and more like a digital thing with the interesting lighting. I think that actually is an interesting addition that I don't see. Well, it's very, very rare to see text, not to mention text done well, on a piece like this. So I thought I'd bring that up because I'm a font guy myself.
Well, I think you also bring up a great point in that the artist using text in here has considered it a part of the art piece. So I see if I can find the words for this, but the text in this piece is physically a component of it. You know what I mean? So you have to take in consideration what it does or how it looks. So a lot of people just throw text on something, especially in art class and whatnot, the teacher will not stop stressing that when you use text, you have to consider it. You have to consider like what it does to the piece. It's part of your composition. It's part of your piece. It's part of your artwork when you use it. And funnily enough, one of the other things he also says all the time is that if you sign a piece, if you put your signature on the artwork, it's also a part of the artwork, and you have to consider what it does. And he actually cracked a joke the other day and was like, some people just sign their name huge on the art piece, and like, if you present your signature on your work, like, you're presenting that as part of the work, and I will judge you for it. and he said that. So he's like, if you want to be safe, just don't sign your artwork. We'll put your name on a piece of tape underneath it, and then we can now like disqualify that from your art piece, or put it on the back of your work. And I'm like, huh. Like,
and
yeah,
you immediately
that sounds like
of...
someone I know.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, no, I really like your point in that the text does a lot for this piece, and there's thought put into it, you know, like, but going behind the cello and like the cursive or like the style matches or fits, you know. So as an element in the piece, how it is crafted is considered. Good stuff.
One more thing about the text, and also with the background, because it is a fairly simplistic background, but this whole piece kind of reminds me of like a music program, like for an orchestral event, kind of, which would make sense. Like,
totally,
if, you know, it's like presenting Octavia, you know, as a musician, and like
maybe that's why the text is there, because it's a poster for her concert.
Could be.
I was just about to say something like that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because she's obviously not in a real space, you know, like.
Yeah.
We're not. Oh
No.
God! I just thought about vector spaces. No math. No, she's not in like a physical space. You know, this isn't somewhere that exists. It's some sort of musical background that maybe she was put on a green screen, and then they took a photo, and then they photoshopped out the green screen, and now bam, they put it on a poster. You know, I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
If it is meant to be a poster, it's a very well put together poster.
And even if it's not, it's still a good art piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Can I talk about the color yet?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Go ahead. Just keep in mind the time. We still do have one more piece.
I really like the colors in this one. It's like, I always say like, oh, I like colors, it's awesome, but it is. Two things I want to point out is the color of the cello, and then the color of the highlights or accents and I guess shadow on Octavia, because she's being shaded in a really bright blue. On like the underside of her like hoof or tail or face and hair and stuff like that, there's that highlight coming from underneath. Like it's like she's being lit from underneath by a bright blue. But it's awesome because that's a super stark contrast to the orange of the cello. So you have that blue and orange going on. And then Octavia herself isn't just gray, because when you think Octavia, like you mentioned, Flutter Guy, it's just like black and gray, and that's Octavia. And then Aaron J. Veal added that really strong pink to go with the eyes, because it like matched, so her gown matched her eyes. And in this case, the character is physically being shaded with that color of her eyes. So Octavia in this entire piece isn't just a boring gray, and actually she looks like more of a, I'm gonna even eye drop this. Let me just take a good sample.
It's like a tannish gray.
It's like a tan. She's actually a subdued orange. So her hue in this entire piece is a very like dull, close to gray orange. It's actually very orange in tint, which goes really well with that blue highlight. Compliments. Anyway, but her herself, she's being shaded and created in her outlines and everything is that color of her eye. So she is a violet and orange. So she's very warm feeling. So she's being created with a violet. So there's like violet undertones, and then she has that kind of like orange gray, and then the blue accents, which actually is really cool in terms of color theory, because something else I've mentioned on the show is when you mix two direct complements, so in this case it's blue and orange, when they mix, they neutralize each other, creating a gray. So what the artist has done here is that he's given Octavia a very like neutral, subdued orange background fill, and then shaded over her with that very light blue accent being the complement, turning and neutralizing her color a little more, creating that gray. Obviously there's pure colors and pure colors thrown over in a digital medium, so they obviously come out very bright, especially in places like the cello and the underlying accents. But in areas like her face and her limbs, where you have that area of like orange and like blue overlapping, it does create that more neutral feeling. So yeah, I don't know, really cool. There's a lot more than meets the eye for like a Transformer reference there when it comes down to looking at the colors on a piece like this, that you really kind of have to look, and I didn't even realize it until I started bambling about blah.
Bambling about blah. This week on the Cutie Art Crusaders, the CAC Bamble about blah.
Blah, blah.
Oh gosh, that's really good. Yeah. So you've got the character made with violet, matching the eyes, and then you have the complements of blue and orange creating like kind of the fills. So I mean, like, just look at her ear. Her ear is awesome. It's being made with subdued orange, highlights of blue, and then velvet like shadows, or not velvet, excuse me, violet shadows,
Violet
and,
shadows.
like both in both of her ears. So like,
Yeah.
I'm touching my screen. I can't feel the velvet.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be mocking you. I described something as velvet earlier.
and violet outlines as well. It's not like boring black outlines. Like the color of the outlines also take into consideration. So cool stuff. Good
Yeah,
artist.
it's really cool.
Bravo.
It's like
I like
you
this
said,
artist.
like you said with your Transformers reference, more than meets the eye. Like if you just look at this piece first off, I mean, you can kind of see the brighter blue highlights or whatever, but like to really understand how the colors interact and stuff like that, you got to take a deeper look.
Is like I like when you like in its specific resolution on DeviantArt, it just doesn't do it justice. Like I had to go bring it into Photoshop and then like physically make the image a little bit larger just so I could see things in proper proportion. Like that's how I eye dropped it. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
So how do you pronounce the artist name again?
Shimabo.
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 Well, the reason why it's Shimabo is because it's shortened to Mabo. If you look at the signature, it's Mabo. We need to start reading the signatures because we kept getting, oh god, I don't even remember. Mio. It's Mio.
Yeah.
Because in the signature it was signed Mio.
Yeah.
And we kept thinking it was Meow or Miu.
Yeah.
But it's Mio. So for this one, it's Shimabo because the signature says Mabo.
Okay. Well, however you'd like to be called, artist on DeviantArt, Shimabo, Mabo, like, you're an awesome artist. I like this piece.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Definitely. All right, so we're going to move on to our last piece, which is called Out of Chalk by KP Shadow Squirrel. This is one of her earlier pieces, and it shows Octavia...
His earlier piece.
His earlier piece, sorry.
It's funny because we've talked about this too. It has a very like effeminate like art, and like it's kind of feeling, but
Yeah.
It's
dude
the
from Germany.
icon especially. That always gets
Yeah.
me.
yeah,
that
you
gets
always
me.
see that Fluttershy, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, it's always the icon for people. That's my first impression. It's probably why people think I'm a girl on DeviantArt.
Well, I mean, besides,
Maybe less so now that I changed mine, but
Besides the fact that you are, but you know.
of course, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to judge gender when all of your art's cute, adorable ponies.
So this shows Octavia kind of posed against a wall, and on the wall is drawn a horn and wings. And it's an interesting piece artistically, and it's interesting also in kind of a broader sense. And I guess, Rainbow Plasma, you wanted to bring that up.
No. Get through the art. Get through the art part first. You can do your quick art thing first, and then I'll talk to you about depth of meaning. That's my thing.
Okay. Well,
Well, I would.
no, you go on.
I'm going to bring up
Pinky Dash, go.
once again with that really, 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 really subtle signature by her left leg.
Mm.
You can just see it there, the KP.
Wow, that is subtle. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Also, like the fact that you can tell it's a wall just by what they've done with that coloring there, where it's light on the ground, and then sort of you can see that transition, that horizontal transition,
Yeah.
which gives you the sense that it's a wall.
Yeah.
It's not just a blank room. Like it's not just. She's not floating. She's standing on the floor up against the wall.
Yeah, that is brilliant.
So that was really, really well done, I thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a word for that line, but it is kind of brilliant how something so simple can kind of, maybe it's like a plane. I don't
You
know.
would call it an implied plane. Like there's a line there that you see that your brain makes sense of and saying, okay, there are now two different planes, one in which she's standing on and one in which she's leaning on, and the shadows for her arms also do that in the way in which the wings in that chalky area are presented like to the sides, but there's still a lot there that's left to be subjective in like how empty the white space is. So there's both a subjective, like what could be completely open area, like being guessed in like the piece, obviously how it's colored white, but there are also are implied areas of line or planes in that, like Pinky Dash mentioned, really, really smart choice to put the line in front of her hoofs on the bottom there.
Mm-hmm. It's also interesting how you have this, I guess it's kind of a vignette, where the corners are kind of this textured, darker feel to it. So it's kind of like a lens looking in on Octavia.
Yep, for sure. It's a slight vignette, but a slight vignette is still a vignette, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It helps centralize, helps focus.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. So did you want to get into the meat of it?
Sure, if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, the meaning behind this piece, I mean, there's a lot of meaning behind a lot of pieces, right? But some pieces are made with more deeply rooted meaning. We talked a little bit about that in our cadence episode. We talked about how the John Hoseko piece hit. There was one in particular that had quite heavy meaning behind it, and it implied a lot of thought going into it. It also implied a good idea, and this one's a great idea. And it's the title of the piece is Out of Chalk. So we can assume that Octavia was drawing this with chalk. I'm just going to make that assumption. I think that's a fair assumption to make. And
it looks like chalk.
Well, no, I meant that she was the one drawing it. It was made with chalk. I just meant that she was drawing it and she ran out of chalk. So the implication here is that she was drawing, even if not consciously, she was drawing subconsciously an idealized version of something. She was drawing a pony that she considered to be something that she wanted to draw, something that she really wanted to put out there in an artistic form. And this has a lot of meaning when it comes to racial tensions in the equestrian world, which obviously there aren't any because racism doesn't, well, it might, but in the show version of the world, there's no racism in ponies, but you can see how that, when translated over into our world, how that the difference between Earth pony, unicorn, Pegasi, and all the mixtures of them might, give off some tensions there. And obviously, there is this default position of, well, if you're an Earth pony, you don't have magical abilities, you can't fly. There you go, So maybe Octavia is kind of symbolizing, maybe Octavia is not symbolizing an Earth pony, or sorry, maybe Octavia is not symbolizing Octavia, maybe she's just symbolizing an Earth pony, a notable Earth pony who is looking up to these things that she can't have, these things that she thinks will make her better or that make people better than her. So obviously she was drawing this and she ran out of chalk. But the reason, the fact that she puts herself there, the fact that she's drawn in such a way that the wings almost attach themselves to her back, where the horn comes right up to her head, really brings this message all around to the fact that she wants this to be her, that there's something missing there, and that she really envies these aspects that other ponies have.
On that point, something. Well, I see now. How do I word this? I'm also getting a different feeling. So it's like there's also the points that you mentioned, and that's why this is a great piece, because it is feeling or like deeper tones. But I'm not so much getting the feelings of Pegasus or unicorn or different races. The fact that there's both present like wings and a horn makes me lean towards alicorn. It makes me lean towards princess. So there's those notions of being regal, of being a princess, of being like a higher power, even like Celestia, like a ruler, that her placing herself like on that image of having wings and like a unicorn horn is more leaning towards that she wants to be something like an alicorn, or it's something that longing to be something like an alicorn is more the feeling that I'm getting, rather than just Pegasus or unicorn specifically. So now the like feelings of regality or that princess really comes to mind, or royal start coming into those themes start coming into play.
I really enjoy when people on this show have the same thought process as me, because sometimes when I have really complex thoughts, sometimes it ends up being an individual person who talks about something for a long time. So I'm really glad you did bring that up, because that was like on my to-do list to talk about, and you're absolutely right. So there is that aspect of the unicorn and the Pegasi, but you also have to consider Octavia as well. You know, Octavia, at least in the eyes of the fandom, and based on her appearance on the show, I think fandom kind of dictates her activity much more than the show does. You know, she's a very regal Canterlot, you know, classical musician proper. So in that kind of scenario, I would not be surprised to see her look up to royalty. And I would not be surprised that even just in a basic want to be a princess one day kind of feeling, you know, there are absolutely those aspects as well. And I think those are just different ways of viewing similar information. And I'm glad you brought it up, because that absolutely is an aspect of this piece, depending on how you look at it.
I'd also be cautious to super dig down into like more deeper and deeper meaning, because like just as the piece is like as a bare meaning of the piece, you have an earth pony who's a background character who us as a fandom has attached to, with the basically an iconic symbol of what an alicorn is drawn onto a wall. So just like as the bare image is being represented, for me personally, there is this background pony that is an earth pony that like our fandom enjoys, what looks to her longing to be something like an alicorn. That is what the piece means to me, like just as bare necessities of meaning, which is, you know, pretty cool, because like we all long to be something, you know, greater or better, and now we start entering deeper meaning, you know.
Yeah, the main point about this is dreams, goals, aspirations.
Yeah, there you go.
Buzzwords, I like them. Now, I want to say something. I have similar sort of theories, but also different. Like, okay. My thought process of when I saw this was that she was drawing like her ideal, her stylized sort of best pony. Like she was drawing an alicorn, and going by the title of the piece, out of chalk. She ran out. She drew the wings and she drew the horn first because that's what she could see. And then as she was drawing the character, she ran out. And she was looking at this and she was going, oh, well, now what? I'm a failure. I didn't get enough, whatever. And then she saw that. And then she stood up and she saw that it matches her. So these things are in her head. She's seeing herself as this character. She's not just an earth pony. She has the wings and the horn sort of inside her. It's an internal, I guess, realization thing. She has these powers that, even though they're not visible, she has them anyway. This is my theory on this. It's not something that
I like it though.
She's drawing these. Yeah.
You
know what I mean.
You've seen the picture, you've read the title, and you've given it meaning. Like that's the whole point of like.
Well, the deeper you go with meaning, the more personal it becomes, for sure.
Exactly.
And
it's interesting because a lot of art can do that, is where you have different people having different meanings of the piece, and a lot of the times the artist like intentionally leaves the meaning of the piece vague just so that everyone can kind of get their own interpretation of it. And I think that this piece can both have a really kind of a sad connotation to it, and it can also have an inspiring connotation to it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
I just wanted to bring up, perhaps to play devil's advocate, perhaps to just get you thinking a little bit more, not that you should have an answer to this question, but just something that everyone can think about. If she was drawing an alicorn, right? And it's not that she wants to be one, right? Or she's specifically drawing what she wants to be, right? Consciously. But if she's drawing this character, she started with the wings and the horn. When she envisioned this character, she started with those aspects. She considered those aspects the most important part of the piece.
Because that's what defines an alicorn.
That's what she considers important in an alicorn. And again, it's a very personal thing. The deeper you go with the meaning, the more subjective it is. But it's something to think about a little bit.
Yeah, but like you said, they're both features that earth ponies don't possess.
So it's interesting to see that those are obviously the first things that she drew in her scheme. The whole thing.
I just like that we're giving so much feeling to this piece, like as just a brony artwork, in like specifically so much meaning, because it only really has these connotations we're giving it to like us as a culture. And like if anyone who's not really a brony looks at this, they're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like cultural context.
Yeah.
It's kind of important, you know what I mean? And that's all what art is. But I'm glad we could feature this piece, because I don't remember if we mentioned it, but this is pretty iconic brony piece. Like, this has existed ever since I became a brony. Like, KP Shadow Scroll is a very influential brony artist that has existed, and this piece is always been there. So it's fun to talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm glad we could feature it.
Definitely. All right, so we should move on to the Q&As or Q&As.
Fairly quickly.
Okay,
We are over time a bit.
Okay, so first question I've got here is, what is your OC's favorite music to go in with this week's theme? Can I change it up and just say, what's your favorite music
Sure.
genre?
Sure.
Well, how about this? We've got a second question that requires quite a bit of thought, and we are running up on time a little bit. So why don't we save that question for another time and take this question and split it into two questions. What is your favorite music, and what do you think your OC's favorite music would be? Does that sound like a fair idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we'd have a lot of fun with the second questions. Let's do
Why
that.
don't we do? By the way, this one was sent in by Copper.
See you.
Yeah. There wasn't a name left, so
CU, so I'm not too sure what's going on here.
Blue Eyes Orange Unicorn, right?
leave your name in the email, please, or you will become Copper or Anonymous, for the record. Anyway, so let's go with own personal favorite music. Don't make it complicated. Let's get through this. Who wants to go first?
My personal favorite genre of music is rock.
Cool.
Okay.
Like
There is no specific subgenre, just rock.
Just rock.
Rock.
Any
Sounds
type
good.
of rock. Awesome.
Sounds good.
I like electronic music. Kind of any genre of electronic.
Cool.
But yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Burns?
Like there's this artist Lights who Rainbow Plasma I talked to you about.
Cool. We'll
I
have
listen to that
in.
music too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
I know.
Anyway,
She's pretty awesome.
I personally really like alternative punk, electronic, like you guys. I guess that's kind of my favorite. I'm on a really big ska kick. I really like ska, Planet Smasher specifically. Yeah, I guess when you talk about like what's my favorite songs, the band Against Me really comes to mind, and that's kind of like alternative punk. Cool. Everything before the White Cross album, that album sucked.
Cool. Awesome.
You're really picky about
My
music
OC
too.
listens to music that you've never heard of.
He's a hipster.
So your OC's a hipster?
Not totally.
Well, is that going to be your answer, or are you just joking there?
No, I was just joking with that one. My OC would listen to...
Oh, wait.
Wait.
Just realized that we totally skipped me, by the way.
Yeah.
Gosh, me.
Sure.
Do go on.
I'm not like super into music. Like, it's never been like a huge influence in my life, but I've always really liked a lot of vocal stuff. So like right now, I'm on a huge Owl City kick because his voice is awesome and I can sing along with stuff.
Voice makes me melt.
I don't like instrumental music, not because I think it's bad, but just because I always get the urge to sing along with songs. So if it's an instrumental music, I end up singing the melody. So yeah, I really like stuff like vocal heavy things, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, my OC, because he's a Pegasus, I'm gonna pun. He likes to listen to uplifting music.
That is adorable. I think my OC would probably listen to some sort of like soundtrack music or like orchestral music, which I also enjoy listening to. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm like now we've rotated around to me. Like I said, I'm not a writer. I don't give stories to things. I don't give story to my OC.
Well, if it's a pony sona, then it makes sense to be the same, right?
Yeah, it's just me. You know, it's just something in the pony world that's supposed to represent me. And I like it for that. So
That's
it's not
fair
like
enough.
I've given myself a backstory of how I was raised in equestrian
Right, yeah.
music I like. You know, so
I think that's perfectly fair.
it's not really my mindset I have about things.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I think that's perfectly fair. I think my character would enjoy all types of different genres, but as you know, I think she'd really enjoy fast tempo stuff. You know,
I
like
bet
really.
her favorite song is Through the Fury and Flames, Through the Fire and Flames.
Theory?
There's actually a song like Fury of the Storm, and I was thinking of that, but then I was like, no, Through the Fire and Flames really fits better.
Yeah, anything with the word fire or referencing fire
Oh my
things
gosh.
like embers. Of course, the first thing I picked was an
Playing
awesome
with
song.
Fire by Einziferium. That's a good one.
But yeah, I'm gonna go with fast tempo stuff.
Playing with fire.
Whether or not it's happy, whether or not it's intense, fast tempo stuff.
Fire.
Sounds good. All right.
It's a dangerous game.
Awesome.
Shall we go into plugs then?
Yeah.
I guess we should. So, we have a DeviantArt page, which is cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com. We also have a email account, which is cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. We have a Facebook, which is Cutie Art Crusaders on Facebook, and we have a Twitter, which is @CutieArtCrusade.
Yay.
So go do stuff on those websites, like, shout, share, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the colloquialism for each particular form of social media is.
Yep.
And send us
absolutely.
questions. Because, yay.
More questions.
Yes. More questions, please.
We have quite a few, but more is
We
always
don't have
appreciated.
quite a few.
Well, no. Okay, we
don't
have
have quite a
we
few.
have some.
We have some.
But yeah. So our theme for next week is right here. It'll be right here.
Ignore what it says, just send butts.
Yeah. for
I'm okay with this.
Rainbow Plasma.
I'm okay with this.
What?
All right.
Next week's theme is Atmospark, guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Aw.
Next week is going to be February. My goodness.
Oh,
That's crazy.
Weird.
My life is moving so fast. I'm already 20.
Dude, you've been listening to too much emotional music.
I tried so hard,
And got so far.
but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
What's your favorite kind of music? Let us know in the comments.
That's a music theme episode. I think that's fine. Let us know.
Yeah,
What's your
yeah,
favorite type of
music.
music?
Fitting.
Make it simple. Don't like list 8 bands. Just
While the
give us a
kids chant,
general.
Sing along.
So,
Sing along.
Kiss, ha, keep it simple, stupid, and also a band. Ha.
That works
Fair
too
enough.
well.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. That seems to be everything here. Well, anything of importance, anyways. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, whether or not you're on the live stream or on YouTube. We love you all the same. I can feel my nose congesting as we speak, so I'm going to try to make this quick. Get out of here. My name is Rainbow Plasma,
Let's burn.
I'm FlutterGuy317.
I'm Atmospark.
and we'll see you guys for the spoiler cast or next week.
I like art.
Bye. Hello, and welcome to the 10th spoiler cast for Season 4, done by the Cutie Art Crusaders. My name is FlutterGuy317, and today I am joined by Rainbow Plasma
Hello.
and Atmospark.
So,
And today we're going to be spoiler casting Season 4, Episode 11, Three's a Crowd. Not Episode 10, as some people on Reddit would like to think.
Episode 11.
Yeah.
Probably not the episode 11 people were expecting, but it was definitely episode 11.
Yeah. This episode was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, this was a far cry from last week's, which was much more. I don't know. Strange. It was like last week's was like so serious. I think that's what it was. Like last week was so serious, and it was talking. It was a key episode, and it was going on about like the virtues of blah blah blah, and then like this episode was just Discord being Discord and going on strange adventures, which I think is kind of exactly what I needed, at least after last week, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Discord is always fun in his episodes. But
I like Discord.
yeah, this is his second episode. Actually, Rainbow Plasma, you were mentioning this before. This is his second non-starter or non-ender episode in a season. So the first
I
one,
don't think he's been at the end of any seasons.
right? So it was his first non-opener of or the second non-opener of a season. The first one was when he got reformed by Fluttershy, and then there was this one.
Yeah.
And
So he's not being portrayed as a villain, because
yeah,
it's the villains normally in the start. Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
right.
big villains.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he was he was, a regular part of the cast, an infrequent part of the cast, as we're seeing. He's not in every single episode, and I think that's a good thing, because less is more. But yeah, he's now just like a part of the cast, a character that comes around every once in a while, but it's still there, in the universe.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun to just kind of see an episode or just a snippet of an episode of like Discord's daily life or something, because like he mentioned that he was in his thinking tree and thinking deep thoughts and whatnot.
He doesn't live with Fluttershy.
No, I mean they do write, and they are like they do visit each other. So
of course,
yeah. But I don't know.
Which
cool.
is evidenced by them being friendly at the end.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're really close friends. I think an interesting thing about this episode... Well, okay, so previously in the past, I've kind of looked at how they've treated Discord, and I'm like, well, that's not really fair. He says he's reformed, and yes, I know you should be cautious, but he hasn't done anything, and, he's friends with Fluttershy, so, a friend of a friend, at least act nice. But, in reality, we look at stuff like this episode, and you're like, okay, well, now I see why you're cautious.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, if stuff like that is happening, then, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like he's very hard to predict, which actually kind of makes sense with the whole Cadence thing, because she was saying that the Crystal Empire is very predictable, but Discord is very unpredictable. So that was probably the perfect thing for her.
Yeah. It's kind of, from an audience perspective, Discord kind of gets redeemed by the fact that he's so like crazy and goofy, and we get to see him do lots of amazing stuff, and so he gets kind of redeemed in that. But I can understand why the characters who might be in this situation might be a little bit less forgiving when all this stuff is being done to them,
Yeah. Especially like at the beginning where like Discord kind of comes in and he's talking with Applejack, Rarity, and Pinkie Pie, and Rainbow Dash before Rainbow Dash just kind of takes off. There is a lot more of that kind of conflict there. I think obviously like Discord's relationship with Fluttershy is fairly good, and I think his relationship with Twilight is decent. But I think that like his relationship with the rest of the main six isn't all that
He has a weird take on friendship, and like he's represented. He's representing friendship in a different way. Obviously, like the show is meant to show you like many different types, so he's just a different type of it. But it's a really weird one, and I think he's still like it's still evident that like remember this is only the second episode since his reforming, right?
Yeah.
We saw him in the opening of this season, and then this episode. So it hasn't been that long since he was reformed, so he's still learning friendship. So we see a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily consider totally good friendship qualities. Like, for example, he, at the very end, when everything else is revealed, he talks about the fact that, like, he wanted to do this just to, like, prove that Twilight was friends with him because she was important, and therefore he wanted to be friends. So, like, that's not really the best reason to be friends with someone just because they're important in your eyes.
Yeah.
And also, he does have quite a bit of friendship jealousy, which I think is something that we haven't really seen too much of so far. But he was obviously very jealous of Twilight's, like, Twilight really wanted to see Cadence and really wanted to spend time with Cadence. And he was really jealous of that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we haven't touched on that, and like, this show is kind of geared towards a younger audience, and that might be something that younger audiences have to deal with on a daily basis.
I think that's super common for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone hits a point in their life, and people learn at different stages, but everybody hits a point in their life where they have that kind of, I suppose, like jealousy in a way. Like almost like competing for a friend's attention kind of thing.
Yeah.
The only difference is Discord has superpowers, so he can, they kind of have to just go along with what he says. It creates an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
I get that Discord was trying to I guess, use his friendship with Fluttershy against Twilight. As opposed to her being friendly with him, rather, she's friendly with Fluttershy, and he's trying to use that friendship against her to make her take care of him.
But at the end of the day, he wasn't sick, right?
No.
Yeah.
So the entire thing, I guess, it came down to the fact that he wanted attention from her.
Yeah, of course he did.
And I guess what you're saying is that he
was using the friendship with Fluttershy to get that.
Yeah, the connection was Fluttershy, and it was like, well, Fluttershy approves of him, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think exploit is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
He used that quite a bit too with Rarity and Applejack before turning them blue.
I really like, since season 1, I think Rarity and Applejack, in terms of their friendship, have come along so far, and like they obviously don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I think they've found a lot of common grounds in terms of reactions to situations.
Yeah.
And I think there's certain things, like this entire episode, they were totally like in sync with each other, and just like of the same opinion. And it's really, that's kind of cool to see, because they were so not of the same opinion. And even though they might be two different personalities, they've kind of found that common ground. Whatever that might be, I'm not sure exactly what the common ground is, but there's obviously some there.
Yeah. Well, it's like Applejack and Rainbow Dash's relationship. Like, they're very competitive, and it's like a certain type of friendship, as we're talking about, like Discord with his type of friendship. And I think that like Rarity and Applejack aren't the same personality wise. Like, you know, obviously Rarity is very prim and proper, and Applejack's very like family oriented and stuff like that. But there's you know, some connection that they hold.
Well,
So
Rarity has like a really interesting matter of fact side to her. You know, like kind of, I don't know, when she takes charge of things, or when she's confronted with things. Not when she's comfortable, but kind of when she gets pushed out of her comfort zone, whether it be Discord taking over or when she has to be in charge of something. I think she can then really relate to that kind of thing with Applejack, you know?
Yeah.
So in this episode, Applejack and Rarity were kind of pushed outside their comfort zone, and they both kind of default to the same type of characters, so they get along really well. Whereas, like you were saying, there's a friendship between Applejack and Rainbow Dash, but I feel like Applejack and Rainbow Dash get along a lot more when the situation is not tense. Right. You know, when they're just joking around and having fun. Whereas in this situation, you know, obviously Rainbow Dash was like, no, I'm not dealing with this. Like, and Applejack was different. So it's interesting to see like the different, like this is all very subtle. This isn't said, but you can see kind of the different dynamics between friends in different situations. And I think that's really realistic. And I think it's really good writing.
There's one line that Rarity says, which is fantastic, and that is when she's talking to Twilight, or when they're all talking to Twilight about Princess Cadence's visit, and Twilight's basically hoping that her visit will be kind of relaxing and peaceful and stuff, and Rarity says something along the lines of like, the fate of Equestria does hang in the balance every time you two get together, or something like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she does have that matter-of-fact side to her, which is fantastic.
I liked Pinky's obsession with the balloons in this episosode. Ooh, floaty thing.
I loved her interaction with Discord, where she's like, "Oh, I'll take care of you. I'll give you cuddles and whatnot."
And he's you in the tree now.
Yeah, hang on the tree.
Yeah. Like, obviously his plan at the very end was to get to Twilight, right?
Yeah.
And he knew that he had to get around the like all of her friends first. So that was very obvious of why he would do that, because he needed to get around Pinkie Pie as well as the other two. You know, I've been hearing from some people recently who are also fans of Pinkie Pie that they're starting to, I don't know, they're starting to tire a little bit that about Pinkie Pie when she's in the background, because whenever she's not the focus of an episode, she tends to kind of just be there for like a quick joke. And I guess some people are getting tired of that. I'm not really sure. Like, I'm not a self-proclaimed like super big Pinkie Pie fan. So like, what do you think about that, Atmospark?
Sorry, I missed that.
Well, I was just talking about the fact that like, what do you think about when Pinkie Pie is in the background? Do you feel like she's just kind of put there just
For, like,
if they
comic
need
relief?
a joke? Yeah.
I did think or notice that this episode more than some others. Although I do, maybe the balloon thing, like right at the start, as Fluttershy was going away on the back of the train, maybe the balloon thing was like a foreshadowing for Discord, which like happened like 30 seconds after that.
Right.
Like it could be a thing because balloons were her thing. Yeah, it does feel like she's just put in there for a bit of a laugh, which I'm okay with because she is the laugh pony.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to present that like it's a bad thing. I've heard from people that's starting to wear a little bit thin, and I think that's just because we haven't seen Pinkie Pie in a leading role this season.
We have. Not
We have
by
this one.
herself. There was her and Applejack.
Right, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. But like she was good in that episode.
No, yeah, she was.
And
Yeah, she
and
was.
I think Pinkie Pie is one of those ponies that does really well in her like she does really well in the spotlight. And she, there's a lot of stuff that she does that's really fun too, like the used patio furniture. Yeah, it was put there for a joke, but like that was an actual funny joke, like that. Whereas like I could understand how people with the balloon is just like, all right, cool, like
Yeah.
But like yeah, it was interesting because I recently had a conversation with someone talking about that, so I wanted to kind of see what your opinion on that was.
It's weird because
Yeah.
sorry, yeah,
You
no,
go ahead.
go on. Okay. It's weird because like I've been liking Pinkie more as a character this season.
Good.
And and I guess like they have been kind of portraying her more like as just kind of a comic relief kind of thing, but all of the jokes are very well thought out, and the visual gags too and stuff like that. So I mean, I guess it depends on the person and stuff like that, but I do find what she does to be funny. And it kind of it adds to the whole feel of the episode. It's not like something that's going to change the whole episode or whatever, but it just like kind of makes it feel a little bit more light and airy, and I think it kind of affects the tone of MLP overall, especially like when you're dealing with some more heavy episodes. Like this wasn't really heavy because Discord is crazy and chaotic and stuff, but like if you're dealing with a heavier episode, it kind of she's kind of like the opposite. She kind of brings the funny.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I personally, I think Pinkie Pie has been like moving down my list, if only because Rarity has been moving up it, because Rarity's really shone in the last couple of seasons for me. And also, I found recently that I'm starting to like slowly move, not necessarily that this changes who I like in the show, but like I'm starting to focus more on like deeper things, the connections between the friends, the subtleties and the personalities. And not to say that Pinkie Pie doesn't have that. I just think it might come up less. I think things like Party of One and the end of Too Many Pinkie Pies were two things that were kind of deep with Pinkie Pie, and I really enjoyed her in that one. But I think in like everyday episodes, she's again moving down, but that only should really show the strength of the other characters,
I still really, really, really like Pinkie Pie. So whatever.
Yeah.
I also really like Discord. He's incredible.
Yeah. So let's.
And what a song, right?
Yeah. I was
right.
yeah. That song is fantastic. And I was trying to think of like.
The genre.
There's the genre, like what it would be called, or like similar songs and stuff like that. But I can't think of anything. But it's very like Disney-esque.
I was gonna say, while in between watching the episode and doing the spoiler cast, I was thinking about it, and I swear that it's been in a Disney movie, that style of song.
Yeah.
If I were to think of something, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I can't think of an example, but I know it's a style of song that's very similar to songs of the same style. But I think it was perfect for Discord, and it provided a lot of great visual gags.
Oh yeah.
Well, because he's so good with the whole visual gags thing, because he can just turn the whole world upside down. So, it's fantastic, especially like throughout the entire song, all of these different references and stuff, and it's just great visuals and a great song.
Yeah, the Harry Potter thing, the main swap thing.
Yeah,
the Bon
The
Bon
TSA
thing.
yeah.
There was a lot of cool stuff in there. I think Discord kind of does that. He's always kind of referential, and I think he has a lot of commonalities, I think, with Pinkie Pie, with his kind of, he's always upbeat, and he's always kind of, breaking the fourth wall just a little bit, not fully, but just really pushing those boundaries. And I think one of the coolest things was the little touch that they added at the end of the song where Cadence and Twilight were both completely soaked. And it was a way, a lot of times I view songs as things that represent the moment, but don't necessarily happen. It's more of like a musical representation of the moment. Like the Bats song, I don't think that actually happened, but it represented how the characters were feeling and how they communicated that to each other. And again, so it's not something that necessarily happens. It's not like they're all singing down the streets or whatever, right? But it kind of conveys moods and things like that. But that little touch at the end made me think that song totally happened. All of that totally happened, and like he made it all happen just because it was like they were completely soaked at the end after that whole like huge drain. So I think that was really cool because I don't generally think of songs as actually happening, but he totally made it seem like it did.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's certain styles of songs that have that kind of effect, like you were mentioning the Bats and this song and stuff. But it's nice that they add these little touches to kind of, be like, hey, this happened. It wasn't just to kind of further the storyline.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of storyline, the whole trip like of Cadence and Discord and Twilight to go find the big flower thing. First of all, Discord in a huge like carriage thing.
Yeah.
It's like he could have made something smaller. And
well, no, because that's Discord. That's what he does.
Yeah, that's true. And then the flower also being huge.
Yeah, that was classic Discord, and I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of things at the end there. I liked again more the subtle touches. The fact that Cadence talked about the fact that she doesn't fly that much, which I thought was interesting. And I wouldn't say this supports anything, but I think it might be interesting to think about if you think about Cadence as a pony who became an alicorn, maybe. I don't know. Again, like I don't really know enough about alicorns to. Well, again, first of all, they're not real. Second of all, like I don't really know much about the process, but that was kind of like a cool little touch to see there with like, I don't know. I like it when they make the princesses more real because I'm definitely on Twilight's side where it's just like, no, I'm not that important, and no, I don't want to have big chariots and whatever. And obviously Cadence has to do her royal duties and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I like seeing the princesses, especially Cadence and Twilight, brought down to earth a little bit and doing mundane tasks and joking about flying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think right at the start when she was really excited about Cadence coming to see the exhibit, was that the first time she's used her wings as an expression? Like she was really excited and she did the wing spread thing?
I mean, maybe. I wouldn't declare anything because I would have to go through a lot of episodes, but...
Well, she has been more comfortable with them, I think.
Yeah, well, they've been playing down her wings. Well, they haven't. Like, yeah.
Well, they played up her princessness in this episode.
But she played it down really well.
Yeah. So that went really well. And just one last thing, because we do kind of have to wrap up, is the fight against the big worm thing.
Yeah.
Was phenomenal. There's an official name for it. It is a tatzelworm, according to Megan McCarthy.
I will never complain about more pony laser fights.
Yeah.
Ever. So that was awesome. I liked it.
Ponies with giant lasers.
Even if it did seem... I'm constantly surprised and like just always shocked to see how far they push the show that that is supposed to be directed at a certain audience, because like I looked at that thing and I was like, that thing is frightening.
Yeah.
To me.
It's scary. Like,
but they always push the boundaries. That's the whole point of the show. They're pushing the boundaries all the time.
Yeah.
It seems like Discord didn't even know that worm was there.
No, he didn't.
He just went to get that tiny giant flower.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so we do have to wrap up because we're kind of running short on time. So we hope you enjoyed this spoiler cast, and tune in next week for our next spoiler cast, which will be for episode 12 of season 4.
Which is probably going to be episode 11.
Yeah.
According to Reddit.
Shh.
Yeah. So anyhow, thank you guys for watching. My name is FlutterGuy317.
I'm Rainbow Plasma.
I'm at Bullspark.
And we'll see you. Bye.
Bye.
As a gift, which was crazy, and I was really taken aback by that. And then he asked me if any of you guys would like anything, and like for him to send you guys something. And so then we all ended up talking to him over like Skype, and he ended up sending us a whole bunch of fan art that he's actually like handmade and colored pencil of us, and it was super awesome. And I had just gotten that package after we recorded the last episode, so like the beginning of this week. And so like I have all these pictures and stuff that we can like put on the screen or whatever. I guess so we can put them in our, actually we can even favorites them and upload them to the Cutie Art Crusader gallery. But
Yeah, we should do that.
they're ridiculously adorable and they're awesome, and I really wanted to give him a shout out and thank him personally for that, because it's super special to like actually physically get something that's, you know, handmade by someone, a fan of someone in Poland of all things, to ship something like that overseas for me, and not want any kind of compensation or anything for it, you know, and for us. So I'm going to be shipping the sketches of you guys out to the other CAC, and it was really awesome. So thank you, Agmem Netsar. Wanted to give you a little shout out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I cannot wait to get that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to show those off when we all individually get them.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to the art. Our theme for this week is Octavia, because I guess it was requested quite a few times, and Octavia is an awesome background pony. So our first piece is called Melody by AJVL, otherwise known as Aaron JVL, who does a lot of really cool pieces that use like interesting colors and stuff. And the first thing that I kind of noticed in this piece is the color that he used on Octavia's gown, which is kind of the most vibrant in the piece. So I'm guessing it's kind of in there to draw your focus a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, it's very velvety for sure.
I feel like it's the most vibrant color that like physically stands out. It's like the most saturated, so like it definitely has that effect. But as far as like where my gaze is being drawn, I feel like it's where the piece is being lighted, so where things are being illuminated. So which is physically like Octavia and like the front of her, the kind of lighter valued areas, like in the, you know, like the pillow, and then the highlights on her and like on her hooves and face, and then the little like fluffs and riffles there. I feel like that's attracting my attention more than the bright pink is. But the pink definitely stands out in the piece, causing it to be something that is, I forget the right word, but it does have a specific effect, like when I look at it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because... Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
Every week!
Every
week!
Okay, so it's interesting because Octavia is kind of a monochrome pony. If you take out like her eye color, because she's literally just black and white. Or black and gray. So it's interesting to see, like, in a lot of art pieces, a lot of artists like will just put in little colors here and there just to kind of make it stand out, I guess. Go on.
A lot of people do these styles where it's sort of regal looking, where it looks like it could be a royal portrait. Like you had that one from episode 69
of our show, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So, in case people notice, I don't think we actually sound it too much because we're all kind of getting over it. But we all managed to get sick this week, I believe. Or Atmos Spark, you weren't really sick this week, but you're kind of perpetually sick.
I was sick last week, and it's just sort of just carried over.
You have allergies like all the time. That's the thing. So, but
I'm like throat pain.
Yeah. So we were all sick this week. I started getting sick like right after we recorded last week, and I'm kind of just coming out of it now. So I'm a little bit congested. I know Bernd had something recently.
Yeah, still a little snuffly.
I know Flutter Guy, you had something this week as well.
Yeah, I got sick on like Sunday night or whatever, and then like I know because I tried to join the live stream for the podcast, and like 10 minutes in, I was just like dying.
Oh yeah,
so I had to hop out.
That's
unfortunately.
That's too bad.
So sorry if you guys were in there and I couldn't stay, but yeah, I'm feeling better now though. But anyhow, Bernd, I know you had something that you wanted to bring up before we move into the art. So
oh yeah,
something that's awesome.
I was just gonna quickly say that, or quickly point out something that was super awesome is that I a little while ago contacted Agamemnensar about his fan art thing that he did for us, his fan art like pieces and like sketches, and I was like, that's one of the most amazing things that anyone's ever like handmade for us, and like it was really super awesome. So I asked if he would be willing to sell it to me like as an art piece, like as like a commission or something, and he flat out refused and said that he'd send it to me. I might make one of my friends watch the show. It's like, Rainbow Plasma's Canadian, ain't he?
Really? Well, I don't know. I think what you're hearing is kind of like a combination of like a little bit of Canadian and a little bit of East Coast.
Yeah, it's just the region you're from and like colloquialisms, you know?
I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, I always have this fear that people can't understand like because usually when I start up like a new podcast or something, the first thing is learn the people's names. You know, like I have to hear their names, like I have to hear them associate with each other and like talk about their names. That's why we do the introductions, by the way, at the beginning of the show every single week. Because every single week we will probably have at least one new viewer, and we want people.
That's what we hope.
Yeah, exactly. So we want people to be able to follow along with our voices.
So if you're a new viewer, yay.
We already did our intros. We're not going to do it again.
Hi,
joined us.
my name's Bernd. I like art. Hi.
He's the art guy.
Yeah.
My name's Atmospark.
Well,
I'm the guy that annoys the guys.
No, we
that other
literally
guys
just
don't
did
like.
the intros. Let's have enough of this. Yeah.
So that guy's getting annoyed as Rainbow Plasma. You can
Stop
remember
it.
him because he always gets annoyed.
We're not
And
doing.
the guy
We're
who's
not,
just-
we're
Yeah,
not
that's-
doing a 5-minute intro every single podcast.
The guy who's just sitting quietly by is Flutter guy.
Hi, Flutter Guy.
I love the fact that I said stop it after the first one, and we decided to do everyone anyways. Like as if you guys didn't recognize my voice or something.
Can also point out that giggle was great, and I'm pretty sure that's what Flutter Guy's known for. Like whenever I go read the like YouTube comments or something, there's someone mentioning that giggle.
Do you remember
Yeah.
first episode we got a comment saying
Pretty
the giggle was
infamous.
annoying?
And we're like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you're annoying.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Did you not see that, Flutter Guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, like first
I saw that.
episode, we got like a comment on YouTube that is just like, I don't know, I think the giggle is kind of annoying, and we're like, we don't care.
You don't have to watch our show.
But please watch it.
Giggling is a part of
Hello, and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 82 for January 28th, 2014. Have you guys noticed this month that we've been getting really cool, like, date matchups
Yeah.
with the January thing? Like, we had 2014, and then we had something else at the beginning, I believe. Anyways, there's been a couple of cool date matchups.
Well, this one, episode 82 on the 28th.
Yeah, it's like flipped.
It's a palindrome.
Right, yeah. Anyways.
I don't know what that word means.
Anyways, my name is Rainbow Plasma. I am the organizer and editor this week, and today I'm joined by...
Berndo 1, special guest coordinator.
I'm FlutterGuy317. I'm the media manager.
I am Atmospark. I'm Questions and DeviantArt guy.
Yay.
Yeah, I should really like learn to put those like comments after we introduce ourselves, because like my biggest fear is like every single week we talk on the live stream, and we talk about like we always get at least like one person who's just like I haven't really learned your voices yet, because like that's a natural thing because we're four like generally same aged like guys. And I mean, I don't think we have personally similar voices, but I can see
From 3 completely different regions, though. Like, I feel like people could get used to our accent, because, like, I have, like, West Coast don't really care accent, and Flutter Guy's a little bit more East Coast and proper, and then we have Australian and Canadian, and, like, every time